These images are going to remind the world that America can do big things. And they remind the American people, especially our children, that there's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing beyond our capacity.
Today represents an exciting new chapter in the exploration of our universe.
Could you two just not talk anymore?
Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. Today's video is going to be chock full of anomalous UFO activity and just overall strangeness occurring in space because, as I'm sure many of you have seen, and if you haven't, we'll discuss it, in the last month or so, there has been a litany of strange occurrences from our moon to other planets in our solar system. So let's start off with this very mysterious image that was captured by the James Webb Space Telescope. The James Webb Space Telescope, for those of you who don't know, is the newest and baddest space telescope that we have successfully put into space. It completely trumps the Hubble telescope in terms of just how far out into space, how many millions of light years it can reach, and some of the amazing photographs were released recently by NASA just a few days ago, earlier in the week. And they released some just gorgeous photographs on a live stream showing beautiful nebulas and star systems and galaxies and you name it, and with extremely high resolution and undeniably beautiful detail. Without a doubt, the James Webb Space Telescope is a grand slam home run, and not only can this thing see far into space, but it can also detect the biosignatures of possible alien life on other Earth-like planets in interstellar space that are close enough to their stars to be habitable, and if they do indeed have alien life, the James Webb Telescope has the ability to detect said biosignatures in the atmosphere, on the planet, within a matter of days or even hours. But here's the strange thing. So they had this big public live stream release of all of these gorgeous photographs. But then, I believe it was the next day, NASA also released and did it very quietly, very under the radar. They didn't feature this during the live streams or the video with the other images, but they are also looking at planets within our own solar system with this telescope to learn more about it. And the telescope is able to look at these planets in different visual spectrums, such as infrared, ultraviolet. And so here is that image that was basically just quietly released on the website with not much coverage. Definitely not coverage like the other images. And what we're looking at here is planet Jupiter, taken by the Webb telescope, which, as you guys can see here, it's showing two different shots of planet Jupiter with some of its moons around it, one being Thebe, Europa, Metis, and so we have one of the visual spectrums to the right, and then if you'll notice here on the left image, taken in a separate color spectrum, there is this large, I would describe it as a diamond-shaped structure, you know, almost like a diamond, or possibly a square tilted at an angle, just sitting there next to Jupiter. Another thing to note, besides this, before we get to it, is this telescope is able to very quickly detect the ring systems around other planets. You may not know this, but Jupiter has rings around it, similar to Uranus, Neptune, but, you know, Saturn, we can see the rings, but it's very hard to visualize the rings around planets like Jupiter, and you can see here, you can actually see the ring going around Jupiter. But my main focus, and apparently NASA appeared to claim in their report of this photo, that this large dark object is just a shadow being cast down on Jupiter by the moon Europa, which, if you remember, Europa, which has been at the forefront of mysterious alien-like worlds that have the utmost potential of harboring alien life. There have been mockumentaries made about it. There's a great film called The Europa Report. It's a giant ice-covered planet that has a warm, saltwater underwater ocean beneath that could very well harbor alien marine life living under the water. But if you notice in the image here, as NASA implied, this, in my opinion, there's no way it's a shadow because it's not even touching Jupiter. That's plain to see. It doesn't look like Europa. Europa is relatively, pretty round. So if it was a shadow, first of all, it's not being reflected on the planet. You could say, well, it's being reflected on some of the gas that surrounds Jupiter, but I don't buy that. When I look at this looks like a solid object with very sharp details, especially, with the wavelength and the graininess of the image. It's still very sharp with this diamond-like shape. And so I have done many past videos about the various enigmas surrounding Jupiter, the unidentified objects that have been captured surrounding Jupiter as well as Saturn, UFOs within the rings. Jupiter is a very strange planet. It's a gas giant. It has the massive red spot on it, which nobody really knows how that came to form, but nonetheless, this dark object, it looks like a structure. It doesn't look like a shadow to me. And in my opinion, it's suspect and fair game for the UFO research community to take a second look at why did NASA not show this during their international live stream release on July 12th and then quietly release it on their website the next day. And the fact that this dark object is near Europa, which even scientists will tell you is probably the #1 candidate in our entire solar system for potential alien life under the surface. The fact this object is near Europa, one of the prime candidates for alien life, makes me have further pause. Could this be some sort of large alien spacecraft parked around Jupiter, right near the ring that's wrapping around it? Do you really think it's a shadow? Are you buying NASA's never a straight answer to this mystery object? Put your comments down below. Many of you, of course, I'm sure have seen the news about the mystery object that crashed into our moon recently, creating this anomalous double crater, which scientists agree is nothing like they've seen before. Mainstream media has already reported on it. There are countless websites, and I just briefly want to touch on this and give you guys my opinion. But if you don't know, around 18 or 19 days ago, what they called a, quote, mystery rocket smashed into the far side of the moon and left 2 craters. And you're seeing the images here, and you'll see the before and after. And this was according to NASA, that it was a mystery rocket, or, one of the, empty rocket stages from one of the many space rocket launches sent up into space. We have a lot of debris orbiting Earth, orbiting the moon, not so much the moon as the Earth, but when looking at the images of past rockets and debris from the moon landings, other satellites that have hit the moon, even NASA was quick to agree none of these rocket boosters or debris ever created a mysterious double crater as the one you're seeing here, which appears to have some sort of structure within it. And as you see all of these different photographs taken by the LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Satellite, of all of the different rocket boosters and debris from past moon missions that have hit, they all create very similar, distinct, single crater impacts. And what's strange about what hit the moon here is that NASA says it wasn't us, as in it wasn't the USA. It wasn't one of our rocket boosters, although I'm suspect of whether it was a rocket booster or not, because again, that is just what NASA is telling us, and we know for a fact anything NASA tells you, you can probably bet the opposite. And so the United States said, well, it looks or appears to be a rocket booster from one of the Chinese moon missions. And strangely, the government higher-ups of China have denied that this is one of their quote-unquote rocket boosters. For now, I'm calling it a UFO, an unidentified structure that has hit the moon and created not one crater but 2. And at the angle that I have read that this object hit, and they were tracking it, there was basically no way it should have created 2 craters like this. So China is denying it. The US is denying it. we don't know what this object was. Again, they are saying it was a booster, but I don't see any evidence until I see concrete proof that these two craters that have never been created before by a falling rocket booster hitting the moon. I will be just as much inclined to believe that this could be an off-world crash or impact of some sort, or possibly some sort of secret black ops military mission to impact or detonate something on the moon. And, they've simply used the Chinese rocket launch debris as the cover story, much like they have used weather balloons, military flares, satellites, and space debris, and everything else under the sun in attempts to hide the truth of the UFO phenomenon. And this idea that maybe NASA, maybe the US government, or it was coordinated, sent something, possibly an explosive, to impact something on the moon, it's not really that far out of the realm of possibility, because this has happened before, where NASA has multiple times purposely impacted the moon and certain parts of the moon, going all the way back to one of the Apollo moon landings, where as we left the moon, we purposely sent a part of the ascent stage, part of the lunar rocket landing equipment flying straight towards the moon with the sole intention of impacting it and seeing what happened. The astronauts had placed seismographs at various points around the moon to pick up the readings. And when this object hit the moon, seismographs that were thousands of miles apart picked up the vibrations for many, many hours after the object hit the moon, and where the famous quote was birthed, which was that, according to the astronauts, the moon, quote, rang like a bell. In other words, it rang like something that was artificial, that had a hollow inner hull with this sort of, outer lunar surface simply being a facade to protect what could very possibly be an artificial satellite posing as the moon. And, that's for another video, and I've done many videos on it. All you have to do is search my channel, go and search the term moon, hollow moon, and, I've covered this years ago. Very fascinating. So then there was another instance where we purposely detonated or impacted a part of the moon, very noteworthy to bring back up, especially for new viewers, and just to refresh your mind, because I love talking about this case. But back in 2012, Obama was president of the United States, and you may remember seeing a lot of interest, especially on my channel and other UFO research outlets, regarding a photograph snapped of a NASA employee sitting at his desk as they tracked this purpose detonation impact, or some would call quote-unquote bombing of the moon. And in that picture, under his arm of the exact area where the moon was to be hit, stood what can clearly be seen as what looks like a large three-dimensional square building rising up from the ground, casting light and shadow down on the moon's surface, and just happens to be in the exact area that they were going to nuke, for lack of a better term, the moon. So these photos came out around 2012, but the actual impact occurred in 2009, and it was a legitimate, at least, to the public, according to NASA, a legitimate mission called the LaCrosse mission, LECROSS, where indeed NASA did drop a small nuclear device, although some claim it was just a piece of a spacecraft that they purposely sent blasting down. However, it was very clear that NASA and the mainstream news headlines clearly stated NASA to bomb the moon. Everyone was out with their telescopes hoping to catch a sight of a massive white plume that was supposed to rise up many miles high into the atmosphere and could be seen from powerful telescopes here on Earth. And the reason they were nuking the moon to begin with, the point of the LaCrosse mission, was allegedly carried out to seek water in the crater called Cabeus. So they were going to blast it and see if they could find ice and water underneath it. That's what the story was. And even President Obama at the time had gone on a late-night news show and stated that he would be out there with his friends with telescopes looking for the plume, And when the impact or explosion actually happened, people across the globe were totally let down as they watched in real time, waiting for this plume to appear through the viewfinders of their telescopes and cameras. Instead, they saw total darkness, nothing, in fact. And it was actually a pretty big letdown, which was also covered in the mainstream news. Now, later on, NASA had put out a photograph taken by a satellite, allegedly, where they had increased the exposure and the brightness and the contrast and messed with the image so much to the point where you could see some sort of white blob coming up out of the so-called impact area, which who knows where that came from and what they did to create it to the point where they could say, hey, here is the plume. There was one, we just didn't see it. However, when these photographs came out in 2012 showing a real scientist for NASA by the name of Anthony Colapret, as he and other NASA employees are watching and waiting for this explosion to occur, he's got this photograph under his elbow, and immediately you can see that not only is this the exact area that they were hitting, but there is a massive, giant, frigging square building sitting right there. It's being illuminated at the top, part of it's in shadow, it's casting shadow around it, and as you guys look at this photograph, there is no trickery here, there is no disputing, this isn't any sort of glitching, this is not a marker that was placed into the photograph. This was, in my opinion, and pretty much everyone else, a genuine slip-up by NASA, as they were likely trying to hit what appears to be an alien base of some sort of building. The reason I believe that it was likely alien is because they were trying to nuke it, and successfully apparently, did so, or at least they tried, but the proof is in the pudding, the proof is in the photograph. So that's another instance where NASA has targeted something on the moon, this time captured in a legit NASA photo on the desk underneath this employee's arm. And, Secure Team 10 was built on my love of lunar anomalies and the discovery of structures on the moon. That's what I started the channel doing and making videos about, and still is my favorite topic, which is searching the moon, searching satellite images, and the evidence of alien and just totally foreign and extraterrestrial-like structures scattered across the lunar surface is undeniable. Again, all one must do is start from the very first video I've posted and work your way up to now and see the evidence for yourself. I have posted on this channel from legitimate Apollo moon landing footage and photographs to satellite imagery taken from the LRO, or Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Reconnaissance, by the way, is a military term. Strange that they named it that. And likewise with the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And we're going to get to Mars here in just a second, because I have some new satellite imagery for you guys of what appears to be another crash, but of a different kind. But yeah, guys, as you're seeing these different images, we have domes on the moon, things that look like large glass structures in the form of domes sitting in craters, reflecting light, obvious. Here is another satellite image of a separate square building or structure that was discovered on the lunar surface, and it's at the very bottom of this satellite image here, and we'll go ahead and zoom in. And although it's been admitted by former NASA image and photo techs that they were told, and indeed did, airbrush as many of these structures out as they could not get them all, and so you will find square-looking alien bases. You will find monoliths, you will find towers, you will find movement, UFOs, and unknown objects hovering above the surface, casting shadows down below. The evidence is unending. And the same goes with planet Mars, which is why we put a reconnaissance orbiter there to completely image the surface and what was on it. And that leads me to the next anomalous discovery in space, which is a satellite image, and that may very well contain a snapshot of a crash site of a UFO, an alien craft, an unknown craft that could be one of ours, but, a crash site of some kind. And so you're seeing seeing that satellite image here, and it's hard to see at first. And so the photograph we'll be analyzing here, which is cataloged as ESP 074-267-1105, acquired by NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter on May 31st of 2022 this year, which shows what's described and what I'm seeing as a sort of U-shaped unknown object measuring approximately or estimated to be 10 meters across, and what appears to be this dark sort of shadowy trail or trench, whatever you want to call it, to the side of the object and connected to it like something skidded to the surface or possibly landed and created this trail from the heat. And the object itself, this UFO on the surface, looks to be glowing. As you can see here, it's definitely emanating brighter light than anything surrounding it. And then you have this dark trail behind it. Very similar to other so-called crash sites that I have published and shown you guys here on the channel, also on planet Mars. And so you're seeing, the close-up here, and the question remains, could this be an alien craft that went down and, skidded across the surface? What is this dark object with this glowing ring around it, or sort of horseshoe-like glow? Could this be an alien craft that possibly came in for a low-angle, landing at a certain trajectory and possibly crashed or skidded to the surface, leaving this noticeable dark trench or dugout trail left behind it? So tell me what you guys think about that, and if you want to see some more crazy footage of the stuff I have posted here on the channel regarding unknown objects discovered on Mars that look like they have crashed or made an impact, I will link to a video, or you can search it on the channel, which is titled 600-Foot UFO Crash Site Discovered on Mars 11/23/16. So I posted this video in 2016, and I just go totally wild with some pretty crazy satellite images of obvious craft and sites where it appears that craft have gone down and dug into the soil, from saucers to other things. So if you want to check that video out, you can, but tell me what you think of this discovery on Mars. I'll put the link to it down below. Also, recently, just to note, while we're on the subject of Mars, this photograph has hit the news recently of a strange, stringy-like object that was snapped on the surface, I believe by the rover, and we really don't know what it is. This is the image. It looks like a piece of string tangled up. On the other hand, it could be some sort of biological object or fungus or who knows what growing on the surface. NASA would likely tell you it's just one of the many pieces of debris from the rover's landing, and it is true, there's debris scattered across the Martian surface, but it was noteworthy, it was discovered, it was posted online, and it very well may be. But when it comes to Secure Team 10 and the evidence I've shown, there are more unknown and unearthly artificial objects on Mars than there are space debris from satellites or rover deployments. So some pretty interesting space news today. Crash sites on Mars, mysterious dark diamond-shaped objects captured by the James Webb Space Telescope lurking near planet Jupiter. Then we have the mysterious double crater on the moon caused by something something, with each country denying that it had anything to do with them, so that makes it even stranger. Why not just fess up and claim, hey, it was ours? But the fact that they're all denying it, and the fact that the object created this double crater, which is basically unheard of, that adds more fuel to the conspiracy and mystery flame. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you could leave a like and a comment and subscribe, it definitely helps us in the algorithm, because half of you guys are not getting notified when I upload a video, and I just want to say thank you guys for stopping by. So much more UFO strangeness to come, only the best right here on Secure Team. If you haven't seen it here, chances are it wasn't worth your time. So stay tuned, guys, stay safe, and I will see you back with more in just a bit.